Hey, everybody. My name is Zac Dixon. I am the executive creative director and one of the co-founders of Ivy Studio. Today, we are doing something a little bit different here on YouTube or Instagram or wherever we're at. We are doing kind of a long form interview today with Michael Cribbs, the creator, author, and illustrator of Amora, the graphic novel, which is live on Kickstarter right now. It is somewhere around getting close to $7,000 of our $10,000 goal. So we are kind of right in the thick of it. Michael, how's it going, man?
It's going all right. It's been
Yeah.
a little tense with Kickstarter, but we'll get through it.
Yeah, it's always a little bit of I don't know, it's a stressful time, like kind of when you're right
Yeah.
in the middle of it, but
Yeah.
it's great to be here. So just a little bit of background. So if you're joining us, you might know us from our animated work that we do with clients like Bad Robot and Netflix and Nike. You might know us from tabletop games where we made games like Moonrakers and Veiled Fate and Mythic Mischief. Now Ivy Studio is publishing our first graphic novel with Michael. Michael is the art director at Ivy Studio. So he works across all these different things. So if you follow us from our animation, Michael is art directing a good majority of those projects, and then is also on board helping art direct all of our game stuff as well too. And this Amora is something that you've been working on for years. So for those who might not be aware of what Amora is, just give us the kind of brief summary. Like, what is Amora?
Yeah. So Amora is a graphic novel that I came up with several years ago, and I've been writing on it for a while. It's essentially about a young girl that's been born with powers, and she's destined by myth to be taken and never seen of again. And the story essentially follows the mother and the daughter, Palithea and Emora, their relationship, and what happens when that relationship is broken, and the lengths a mother will go to be with her daughter.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna add the campaign to the thing here. You can kind of go over there and check it out if you haven't already. There's a lot of like you get some like screenshots of the book and get a little insight into the characters. We got some kind of select pages there that you can see. And yeah, we'd love to have your support. We're really excited to get it in your hands, and we're just gonna spend the next hour or so just kind of talking. And I did a show a long time ago that maybe some of you might have watched called Animalators, that maybe thinking about bringing that back in some form or another. But that's kind of a little bit of a return to that. We're just going to talk a little bit about Michael's creative process and some of the things that have gone into making this book. So yeah, let's start kind of at the beginning. Like, tell me a little bit about how Amora came to be. Tell me, like, where did this kind of start from?
I think it. So I've always had several stories going in my head, and I never really finished one. But I finally finished one, and then I moved on to the next, and then um, you know how that goes as a
Oh yeah.
writer. Anyways, so you're always jumping forth between stories. But then I kind of realized that I had several stories with some really good ideas, um, and I came to a point where I was like, okay, I can make several stories with some good ideas, or I can make one story with a bunch of great ideas all combined. And so I started cherry picking some of the best parts of some of my stories and putting it in one. And slowly, that's kind of how Amora came to be.
Hmm.
Um, I've always, I don't know, I watch a lot of movies and like everyone else, and everything lately has been about saving the world and saving the universe. And I wanted to write a story that was kind of like going the opposite direction, where it's like, okay, what if it's about saving one person, and how can I make that story just as strong as saving the universe or anything else? And I'm not the first person to write a story like this, but I just wanted to go a different route based on everything that I've been flooded with lately. So yeah, that's kind of how it came to be. Is we're about saving one person, and after that, I just began building more and more upon the story, and it slowly just started growing into its own thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like that you say that, because I think one of the hardest parts about writing is just like it could be anything. Like it could go any direction, and just like
Yeah.
deciding on what it is, like what ideas you're going to include. Like, does this idea that I have over here belong with this idea? Like,
Hmm.
So you're saying it was many ideas together. Like, do you just have like a journal or something that you just jot down ideas in? Like, where are all these ideas living, or are they just in your brain?
Uh, yeah, they're all in little mini notebooks, little Piccadillys all over my house. But no, it's yeah. I found that there were some of the same kind of vibes within the stories, and so that's kind of how I thought that I could steal and kind of manipulate those moments and those other stories to be put into one story that was kind of grander than all the others. And yeah, I went through several phases. I mean, there was at one point they had a dog in Amora, and I
Oh,
was like,
really?
no, yeah. So like it's gone through so many changes, and characters have been pulled and put in, and so it's I don't know, it's really interesting. It's like a puzzle trying to figure out how to put everything together, but you have to find the puzzle pieces too. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the future for a moment. Like, where is this all going? I mean, book one right now on Kickstarter. We're gonna make that happen. I know you're already working on book two, but
Yep.
I asked this like I don't know the answer, but like, do you have like an outline, like outlining like all of the stories? Like, tell me
Yeah.
where we're at with all that.
So before I even really started diving into illustrating book one, I had done scripts for all the books. I wanted the whole thing planned out. I wanted to really um, get down in the weeds with stuff and figure out, okay, what's going to happen? You know, what do I need to think about in book one that
Mm,
could tie into later books? I think that was the most concerning thing to me because I didn't want to finish book one, put it out in the world and then realize, oh, I could have put this little thing back in book one that could have been seen later. And so,
yeah.
yeah, I really want to flush it out through scripts. And I was doing character concepts too while I was scripting out stuff just to kind of inspire me for what the characters could look like, what the style could look like, the world could look like. Um, and so, yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about the art, but you were talking about writing a little bit now. So tell me a little bit about your writing habit. Like, have you formed any habits around writing? Like, how do you get it in there? I mean, you have twins, which people might not know about you.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I'll remember when my twins first came, like I just got so involved with writing that like we waking up in the middle of the night to feed them, and it'd be like 3 in the morning, and I'd be like, oh, I just got an idea for like this scene, and so I pull out my laptop and just start like jotting down stuff. So it's like I've just kind of forced myself to like, okay, if I come up with an idea or something that I really like, or something that happens to me that I feel like I can put into a story, I'll write it down and try and slowly piece together what I can of a story. But habits, I don't know. I don't know that I've developed any good habits about writing so far. So
Yeah, it's funny you said like because I have kids as well, and like those. It's funny how those moments where you're just like up at 3 a.m. and just like rocking a baby back to sleep. It's like it's wonderful in some sense. You get to snuggle with your kid, and that's nice. But it's also horrible because you're so tired. But like, man, what a great time for ideas. I feel like I
yeah,
forget like half the ideas that I come
yeah,
up with during those times, but they're great. It's like the shower moment, but like a little different.
yep, exactly, yep.
So something that I've thinking like thought a lot about is like most writers like having written but not actually writing. Do you agree or do you disagree?
I think it depends on the scene because like if I know exactly how a scene is going to go down, I love kind of diving in and doing the detail and figuring out the conversation that needs to happen. Um, if I don't know and I'm like, oh, does this character need to be in this scene or does that character need to say that? Like it's sometimes I kind of feel like when I'm writing, I can get kind of frustrated if I don't know where I want to go with the scene. Um,
Yeah, that
but
makes sense.
you know,
So like I know you did this big outline and stuff, but how do you go about thinking about structure, like story structure, outlining? Like have you like you follow in like the hero's journey, or are you just kind of going with it a little bit more naturally with like how the characters might respond to different situations? Yeah, what's your kind of overall take on structure outlining?
yeah, so I did want to follow the hero's journey as much as I could while still staying true to how like I don't know how to describe this other than how I felt the story should go. Um, and I think it kind of went parallel with the hero's journey, and I did. I did use the story clock to
Oh,
kind of
nice.
piece out exactly where I needed moments and where my dead moments were in the story, and that kind of helped me piece together scenes and portions of the story that needed to go together.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so Story Clock, our friend and a co-writer on a project that I'm working on called the Carrier. Seth Worley has a company called Plot Devices that they sell these great books. I don't know if I. Oh, yeah, got
Nice.
got Story Clock workbook. So it's like
Yeah.
here's just a blank page. It's like, start lay your story out on a nice little story clock. Can be really helpful. And yeah, I've working with Seth. I've learned a ton from him on this like process, and I find it to be really helpful. So go give him all your money after you give us your money on Amora. So that's the
Yeah.
first investment. Then go buy some story clock stuff. So also, I mean, you also have written a novel which is yet to be released, called Windrunners.
Hmm.
Um, so first, tell us a little bit about that, and then tell me a little bit. Is it the same process for you, or was it pretty different experience writing graphic novel versus literary novel? I don't know what the like
Yeah.
proper like turn is in relation to graphic novels, but yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it was very similar. I feel like Windrunners was definitely a learning experience for me for writing. Um, like I said, I'd never finished a story before, and to finish a novel, like it was such an undertaking, and it's still an undertaking because it's just on the shelf right now. I've still got my eye on it every once in a while, but I think like writing Windrunners kind of and then moving to a graphic novel helped me understand like what to strip out because
Mm,
like in a book you can write as much as you want about a scene or all this extra stuff, but when you have a graphic novel it's like okay, you need to get to the point, you need to have like every page has got to have some meat on it. And so I think that kind of helped me because when I was writing Windrunners, I started Amora. And then I was like, oh, I'm really stripping down to the bare bones here. So like I went back to Windrunners and was like just cutting scenes out that I just didn't think I needed. Just
mm.
kind of like, make it a little more uh I don't know, condensed, I guess I would say. So yeah, I mean it definitely helped me in my writing process, between the two, learning how to like nix a bunch of extra stuff that I felt like I didn't need.
Yeah, and do you feel like you're able to like pick up some of that like world building in the visual aspect of the medium?
I think so. I think that's the one thing because I'm starting to debate on whether or not I want to do Windrunners as a graphic novels because like
Mm,
when you when you get to actually depict the world how you see it and show your audience, it's like that's like the best possible scenario
yeah,
for creating something. And I mean, not even filmmakers get that. I mean, they have to use what they can find, and so like I'm literally at my desk like pouring out my head like how exactly I'm seeing the story. And so I think like that's the great thing about graphic novels is that you're able to do that.
yeah, definitely. And like you were saying that. I mean, we did this trailer for Windrunners like a
Mhm.
while ago as you were writing the novel, and I was like, I mean, yeah, I really love how this trailer came out that we all made
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
So maybe down the line that could be something we do. Not like you don't have enough on your plate with the 13 books that that
Yeah.
Amora is going to end up being.
Yeah.
How in the world did you arrive at 13 books? Like, was it like a structural thing or
Yeah.
okay?
It ended up because based on how I had done book one, I realized around about how long I wanted each book to be.
Hmm.
And for Palithea to go on the story and for it to feel like it was a decent length, and I can sit here and say 13 books is like way too much, but honestly, once you read the story, I think you're really going to understand why it is that length.
Yeah,
So
yeah, definitely. Um, okay, so another writing question I had. All of my writing background comes from filmmaking and television, movies, that kind of thing. Um, One of the things that I end up thinking about a lot that's just really hard is like I'm really good at like I think it's fun to imagine these huge, these worlds, these interesting like visuals and scenes and characters, but like infusing emotion into these stories, I think can be really difficult. Um, is there anything unique to that challenge in graphic novels, or maybe you could just speak a little bit to, um, I don't know, the hard work that it was to do that in Amora?
Yeah. I've actually thought about this because like when you're writing a novel, you can, get in the character's head and you can just like say what they're thinking.
Mm,
I mean, I guess you can do that too with graphic novels, but you're a little more limited in that instance. And that's the thing. It's like I'm still learning as I'm working with graphic novels is that like how to infuse emotion into it. I think like it's so tough because like you have to have characters with emotion or else like you're not going to get a reaction from an audience. And so I don't know, I hope I displayed it as best I could. But I do think like there's an inherent um I don't know what I'm trying to say here. You can kind of understand where my characters are coming from in Amora. I think you can kind of get the vibe, and even though they're broody, Palithea is a pretty broody person, but like she has good reason to be, and I think like that, and in and of itself, lets you connect with the character easier. Um, and I
yeah.
think that is where emotion is created.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, and the other part about that too is just like getting people to care about your characters, like getting them invested.
Yeah.
Like any advice for writers out there on like just how
Oh
to
man.
get people to care about your characters and the people in your stories?
um, I think they have to be relatable. I think like that's the best that I can come up with at the moment. Like I'm still learning how to write stories and how to create something that's successful, but I think they have to be relatable. I think you need to understand what they're going through, um, and yeah, hopefully that comes across to the audience. That's not always the case, You're always going to have some people that just don't understand what someone's going through. So, uh, but that's okay. It's still, it's still about the journey, and I think people can still enjoy themselves as they read the book.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So one of the things I was thinking, so with your day job essentially is creating animated projects for clients. How does work with your client work, like with people like Nike and Cartoon Network and Amazon? Like, how does that inform this work that you're doing on your graphic novel?
I mean, I think whenever you're working and creating characters, working with perspective, color, I think all of that is just going to enhance you as an artist. And so, you know, I'll be working all day and I'll draw and sketch storyboards and do style frames. And then once work's over, I'll move to Amora, and it's like I'm warmed up. I've got color and perspective and styles on my mind. So I think I'm pretty primed for it at the end of the day, and I think like that they kind of bounce off of each other, and that like especially with making a graphic novel, like you need to make the scenes as dynamic as you can for the most part, so that they're
Hmm.
interesting to look at. So it's not very different when you're working in animation. You have to make stuff feel a little pushed, a little more stylized, and I think working in that world nonstop just kind of helps you get better and better.
Yeah. Yeah, was there anything that like surprised you when you started to get into like creating panels? Because like the way we think about our work in animation, right? It's like shots are going to cut together or they're going to
Hmm.
transition together, and like that works in like a very specific way. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
especially a lot of the work that we do, like you and I really gravitate towards more like kind of cinematic, we like 3D stuff that's like a little bit more, painterly and narrative rather than like straight up motion graphics, which a lot of our work
Right.
ends up being. But like,
Hmm.
um, but it's on a page, right? You've got like page turns. You've got like they live in little boxes, and there's like
Yep.
a lot of different like creative things that you can do with that medium to tell a story. Like, what were some of the things that surprised you about that difference between what we do in our animated projects?
I mean, I think the first page that I put together for Amora was just like not good. Like like the layout, like I truly like it did not translate like I wanted. And the thing is like, and I still do this. I think through my scenes in Amora way too cinematically, like they're gonna be in a movie or a show. Like and you know, you can't always do that with graphic novels. I can't think of an instance right now, but I truly like I'm like, okay, like I can't push the 180 on this, but like sometimes like you can. Sometimes you can like, you know, break out of the rules with graphic novels, but it's yeah, truly like working with panels was like a big learning curve. I think I'm still learning how to do that, and I've reached out to really great artists that have given me some great feedback about how to lay out stuff and what not to do. So it's definitely different, and it definitely takes some time to learn. But I do think I'm getting a little more comfortable with it. Um, kind of understanding how a page is laid out, how to lead your eye through a page, and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, like tell me, I'm curious, just talk about your process a little bit when it comes to doing the art itself. Do you know already like what, this page is going to start up here and end here? Yeah, walk me through it from like you've got a script
Yep.
and final page.
Yeah. So when I write out the script, I and I found the script is more like guidelines than it is actual Bible. So I write it when I write out the script. I think about, okay, what's going to be a good cliffhanger for each page, so that you can keep the person interested in the story and continue to turn the pages. And so that in writing is my main concern
Hmm.
as far as layout. Once I move to the page, I'll figure out, you know, okay, what's the most important panel on this page that needs to be the biggest. And then I kind of form my layout based on that after. And so it essentially kind of is like a puzzle. Once again, you kind of figure out, okay, what do I need to do that's going to be the main cinematic shot? And then what are the supporting shots after that to kind of like populate the page around it or above it or below it, etc.
Got it. Interesting. So it's almost like there's like kind of one key moment happening
Not
in
always, but yeah.
in a page. Got it. And then you're
Yeah.
trying to like set that up. And
Hmm.
then like looking at a lot of these pages and I won't get too far into the books. It's like not any crazy spoilers or anything like that. But it's also like there's a huge mix of like, extreme wide shots, close-ups, like medium shots. Are you trying to get all those each one of those in a page, or are you not thinking about that as much?
Um, I am. I think more so with book two. I am. After book one has all come together, I've kind of realized, okay, I need more. I need more far away shots. I'm staying a little too close to the characters,
Hmm.
except for when it's an intense scene, something like this. You want to stay up close. You want to keep it intense.
Yeah.
Um,
I love
but
this. Love this page.
yeah, it's. I try and keep a good variety as much as I can, but that's you know, it all depends on what's going on in the story and all that. So
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about color then. I mean, do you kind of lay out like a color script like they would on like a Pixar movie or something like that, where you kind of get a sense of like here's how the color's flowing with the narrative. You go more page by page. How do you work that?
yeah, I think when I'm divvying up scenes, I kind of do one illustration and kind of figure out what I want the lighting to be, the kind of mood I'm going for.
Yeah.
Um, this is obviously cool shadows with warm light in the snow, and then you've got a really faded dark interior with some hints of warm light coming in here and there. Not really in this page,
Trying
but
to find
yes.
some other
Oh yeah,
pages we've shared publicly, so I'm not
yeah.
giving away like too many details before you get
Yeah,
the actual book. But
this is obviously vibrant and playful. Two kids, you know, out exploring, doing what they're not supposed to be doing. So keeping it very lively in this scene.
and then like some of the big climax moments. I love these reds, and this is like the money shot in book one, in my opinion. I mean, we put it right at the top of the page, so
Yeah.
and it's in some of the trailers and stuff that we have. But um, Like when you're initially doing it, like was this all like this is red? Like this just like this scene feels red? Or was
I
that
th-
something you came at while you were doing color passes on stuff?
I can't remember actually for this scene. I want to say that like it was probably just like my gut reaction to what the scene would look like.
Hmm.
Because I mean, a lot of what Amora experiences is a lot of blues, and I needed something to oppose that, and that would be red. So,
Yeah.
and I think it came out pretty good.
Yeah. No, no, I love it. The other thing art wise, character designs. I mean, I love the style that you ended up with on Amora with all the characters. Was there kind of a path not taken at all? Like, was there any like different stylizations, or have you like kind of always seen this version of Amora in your head?
I, there was a part of me that wanted to go even simpler, um, based on how much illustrating I knew I was going to be doing after scripting. But I don't. I don't know. Like I'm always tempted to do so much detail and everything, and I think it landed in a safe enough spot where it's still eye catching, but still simple enough in a way. Um, and obviously, it's an amalgamation of like so many inspirations, especially the characters. So I think I don't know. I played a little bit with the styles, but I think like I always kind of knew where I was going to go with the final look, and I think Palithea set that up. She was the first
Mm,
character to come out, and everyone else is based on kind of this stylized look of her.
nice. Yeah. Were there any character design choices that you made where like their kind of personality or like emotional characteristics kind of informed the actual character design itself?
Yeah, I mean, with Palithea, I needed her to look as moody as I could, without her being, too unlikable.
Sure.
And I tried when I was doing my characters. I think while I was still writing the story, I didn't really know how I wanted them to go, or how I wanted them to look,
Mm,
in their concepts. And so I kind of try to keep it in the middle of the road, but I do think there are some character concepts like Hegnon, which is the village priest. I did a concept of him, and I was like, oh, this is the guy. Like this guy looks like he's a pain in the ass. Like, so
I'm
yeah,
trying
he's
to see if
very.
I can. This guy?
No,
Oh,
that's
no, no, no.
that's
That's the funnest.
uh, he's somewhere. There he is.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he just hit home, and I was like, I know exactly. I don't even think I'd written a spot for him in the story, and I was like, I need to put this guy in. He
Uh,
feels like somebody I've encountered.
yeah, I cannot wait to see some of the character designs down the road because like I've had the pleasure of reading kind of the whole story, and there are some really interesting characters that Palithea meets along the way of this crazy adventure that she goes on to save her daughter.
Hmm.
Um, the one of the things that I meant to bring this up while we were talking about story, but like as I was reading the book, it like really does feel like a video game in some senses, and I feel like that I don't mean to, I don't want that to sound negative in any way
No,
because
yeah,
like I think video games can have a great story, but there's like a lot of these almost like boss fights that like Polyphia like comes up against kind of along the way. And
yeah,
hopefully I'm not giving too much of away, but w- was there ever a time in your head where like maybe this is a video game or maybe this will
yeah.
be a video game?
No, it actually started out. I was, when I was first. This is before even Amora was a story. I was like, okay, I've got these visuals in my head, and I think it could be a cool video game. So I started doing these very, very rough sketches of Plithia, and I
Mhm.
was like, this would be a cool video game. I'm like trying to figure out what the game could be about. And it's like little did I know I had, you know, I don't know, a long time down the road, and then finally I figured out, okay, this is going to be a book. No, it's not going to be a book. It's going to be a graphic novel. And then I finally got there. So yes, it did start out as a video game, and I probably think a lot of that was pulled into the graphic novel
Mhm.
portion. So if people get that, that's totally fine. I truly just like based on the story, I didn't think that it was gonna be um as potent as it could be as a video game.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it's still time. Maybe finish up all the books, and maybe the people will want it.
Yeah, we'll
Uh,
see if that time comes.
yeah. Um. Okay, so I wanted to shift a little bit towards just talking about like just what it's like, kind of doing this type of a project. I mean, it's very personal to you, and so like let's start here. So like on a project like this, there's really no constraints, right? There's not a brief, there's no client, there's no overbearing creative director telling you to like move it left and right and make it a little bit bigger. What is that creative environment like for you? Is it freeing? Is it terrifying? What's that like?
I would say more than anything, it's freeing. I obviously like I've done panels and pages where I've sent it to people. I'm like, I don't know what to do right here. Like, give me something. Like, I need some direction from somebody else other than me. Um, but for the most part, it's just like I know where I want to go with it. I know what I see in my head. I'm a pretty visual person, obviously, as an art director. But there's always those instances where I'm like, okay, I need somebody else's eyes on this. Like, this is way too much. It's a huge burden, and like honestly, like props to anybody, any artist or writer that has been able to do anything that's super successful on their own. Um, I don't know if that exists, but props to them because like the people around me that gave me the advice that I desperately needed, honestly helped push Amora to where it really needed to be.
Hmm.
Um, so
Yeah, like what do you kind of use as that North Star? Because I think one of the really challenging things in a project like this is it can be anything. Like
mhm.
it can go any direction that you want it to. It can be any scope that you want it to. Like, how do you construct that kind of creative box to live within?
Oh man, um, I don't know that I have an answer for that because I honestly like I truly it's just like I see where the story's going, and if I'm able to do my due diligence and put it on the page properly, like that in and of itself is like my North Star to like keep going with the story and making sure that I'm staying true to myself, and how I see it in my head.
Yeah.
Does that answer
I,
your
I think
question?
so. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you brought up another thing. It's just like how do you continue to stay motivated? Like in doing a project like this? Because this is a long project for you. I mean, how long have you been
Yeah.
working on it at this point?
Oh gosh. 3 or 4 years. It's got to be,
Yeah.
with writing and also working on book one. It's that and that is something that I think like you know I pride myself on pretty much more than anything else is my dedication and my motivation to keep going on something. And I think that's something that anybody that is going to be doing a graphic novel is going to need. Like there's going to be times where you don't want to sit down and do this page. Like I'm doing it right now with book two. Like there's a panel with like 50 people on it. I was like, I'm really not looking forward to drawing 50 people, but like it's necessary to the story. And it's I don't know. It's like, especially going through the Kickstarter and showing people what I've done with Emora so far. I think like it's been such a positive feedback to me that it's really put wind in my sails to keep going with book two.
Mm.
And yeah, I mean, at the end of book one, I was just like, I'm dying here. Like, and so I was so excited to hear people being like, oh, I love this, like, can't wait to see where this is going. I can't wait to get my hands on book one. So that really puts a fire in me to keep going with book two and illustrate 50 people per panel. So
I'm gonna look at every one of those people, Michael. I'm gonna enjoy each one of their faces.
all those background characters, man.
So what makes a project like this, or even Amora specifically, like what makes this meaningful to you? Like why is this a worthwhile thing for you personally to be doing?
I've So like when I was a kid, I was constantly playing outside and making up stories with my friends. I mean, they helped too. We all created stories together, but I was just so invested in like playing these parts and stories, and going out and pretending and doing all this stuff. And I think like when you grow up, you don't really get to do that anymore. And I think a lot of my work is based on like nostalgia and my experiences as a kid. Um, and so I think like creating Amora is like my way of experiencing a story as a grown up, um, but playing pretend. So I think like yeah, I think that's the best way I could describe that. Um,
Well, so with that, what would you say is the most terrifying thing about putting a project like this out there? Like what scares you in this?
um, Honestly, I was telling my friend this the other day. I was like, I feel like I've created book one and I'm super happy with it. I'm gonna keep going, but I also feel like I'm putting stuff out there. I'm like, what if people hate this? Like, what if people get book one and they like really don't like it, and then it just goes downhill from there? And it's like,
Mm.
well, no, I got to keep pushing because like I love the story. I believe in it, and obviously book one's hard because you're just trying to introduce the world, the characters. You can't have too much going on. You need it to be, this perfect mixture of things. Um, but yeah, I think the more we get down the line, I'll be more confident as far as where people stand with the story.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so I'm I think another part of this, especially because you do creative work for a living, so it's like you are drawing all day, for work, and then also drawing all night for fun. Like
mhm.
how do you continue to find joy in creative work? Like how do you keep that spark alive? Or do you? Or are you just sitting there just like drawing like a zombie and just hating your life?
I mean, do you see the bags under my
Yeah, I
eyes?
mean, yeah. I think
um,
that's more our kids probably than the work, but
yeah,
it's both.
yeah,
It's both. And they're both.
yeah.
We love our children. That's what we're saying.
It's tough. Like, and honestly, I need to remind myself sometimes that like, you know what, I'm not in the mood to draw. Uh, and I do know that if I sit down and draw, like, I'm not gonna get what I want out.
Mm.
And some nights it's like you gotta bite the bullet and just step away.
Mhm.
You gotta recharge because I think like we when we went to that film festival and I was asking concept artists, what does he do to recharge? He was like, honestly, like the best thing you can do to recharge is just to get bored. And I'm
Mm.
like, I've thought about that ever since. And I'm like, that's honestly so true. 'Cause it's like I haven't been bored in years. Like I've always had something to do. Like I mean, whether I like it or not, like
Yeah.
there's something to do. I'm not bored. And so like as an artist, like trying to find boredom to recharge is like very, I don't know. It's interesting. It's challenging, but I do think there's something there, and recharging yourself, or there's other ways to do it, like learning something new, or reading a book, or trying something else. But I don't know. I think kind of just shutting down and like I don't know, going to take a shower and just standing there for an hour. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's wild how important rest is, like, in the process of creating anything. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I relate to that so much. Like, to me, it's like I know you do this because it's like, we try to give lots of time off at IV and like and try and make like prioritize that. But like I do this, it's like, oh yes, I have a day off. Like if the kids are off at school, like what's the most fun thing I could imagine doing right now? And like I know you're like this. It's like I'm gonna work on my book. Like I'm gonna
Yeah.
work on this video game we got going or this like
Hmm.
short film that we got going. Like that is like legit. I love it. Like it's so fun. And but then you just get to the end of your like supposedly like day off or restful weekend, and you're like, oh man, I really just like if you look at it a certain way, I just worked this whole time.
Yep.
And then you're just like, it I feel like it's a discipline. Like you really gotta like just it's okay. You don't have to keep slogging at this, and
Yeah. Yeah.
it'll still be there, even though it doesn't feel like it. It just feels like, at least for me, it just feels like everything moves so slowly, and I'm just like, I just want to speed this up. Like I just want
Yeah.
it to be done. Like I want this big thing that I've been working on for years to just be done, and like you don't, I feel like for me, I don't really feel that progress until I really step back, like, and look over years amount of time.
Yeah.
Especially when you're taking on such a big project like this, it just feels like it moves so slow, and that,
Yeah.
like, I think can, at least for me personally, it can really like push me into a place where I'm just like really overdoing it. Do you feel that way too?
I mean, yeah, it's very overwhelming to think that I have so many more books to go. And based on how book one did me in, it's very overwhelming. And yeah, I think like it's hard to enjoy the journey when you're feeling so overwhelmed like that. And but if you think about it, it's like once it's done and it's out in the world, it's like you don't really get to go back and experience that again. Like
Hmm.
this is it. This is the experience right here. You making it, sitting down and doing page by page or frame by frame. Um, and it's hard to look at it that way when you're working on it, but because you always see stuff with rose-colored glasses when you're done.
Yeah.
But I absolutely agree with that.
Well, and it's tough too when you're in that like grind, and you're also the only thing you're seeing on Instagram or ArtStation is the like the finished product of all
Yeah,
these other people, and you're just like, damn, all this stuff is like
yeah,
coming out all the time, and like, and I'm just sitting here drawing 50 people in the background of a thing,
yeah,
and it's just never gonna be done.
yeah. I'm never gonna amount to everybody else.
Well, and it's like I've been reading this. I was listening to an interview. It was just like our bodies are like like evolutionarily programmed to um kind of chase like the dopamine hits, right? It's like trying,
Mhm.
but our like core like reptilian beings or minds or whatever like are really just short-term thinkers, and like it's we chase after those like kind of short-term hits, right? But it's like
Mhm.
if only we could convince that like inner like you know being that like if you knew only about this like massive dopamine hit that we're going to experience in 6 months from now because of what we're doing right now, but
Yeah.
your body's just like, what are we doing here, man? Like
In 7 years, you're really gonna feel it.
but it's worth it. It's so
Yeah.
worth it to like get to the end of it. Which is a long way leading to my next question, was just like, why this? Like, why something so big, and why not something smaller? Like, why not just draw a bunch of Instagram posts? Like,
Yeah.
obviously nothing wrong with that.
I
Any thoughts on
like
that?
to me it's like I've always been so taken with stories that are like timeless.
Hmm.
Um and that's honestly kind of just what I wanted to create. I wanted to create something that's timeless, something that's going to stand the test of time. And obviously you can put a bunch of illustrations out and be a successful artist, but that's just not what I wanted to do. I wanted to create something really big and something that I could be really proud of. Uh, that is just like one entity.
Hmm.
Uh, and I think that's why I wanted to create Amora and how big of a story it is.
Yeah, that's awesome. Uh, the other, I think one of the other really big challenges on a project like this that is really self-initiated, and it's just you. How do you know when it's done? Like, how did you know that book one is done, or is it done? Like,
It's not done. It's not done. I still there. I'll be looking at posts on Instagram. I'm like, I didn't fix her shirt in that illustration. Like, and yeah, like it's never done. You just gotta,
just move on to the next
be
one at some
you gotta
point.
be like 90% okay with it.
Is that where you're
But
at? You're at
basically, I
this is
think so.
90%
Yeah,
of the vision. All right.
yeah.
Uh,
There's always gonna be something. Like you're always gonna look back at your work and be like, ooh, perspective on that. But you know what? I'm the only person that's really gonna count. I mean, me and like a couple other people that are like high professionals, in the industry are gonna see it. But whatever.
and that's such a thing to struggle with, because it's just like those details matter, right? Like they better matter, or
Yeah.
what are we doing over here spending so much time on all this stuff? But there's certainly a point of diminishing returns, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's tough to know when to stop. Um, but that's why it's helpful to have other people who care about the project, and it's helpful to have those people who can come in and be like, oh yeah, this frame's great, but over here maybe put some time into this one.
Right. And that's usually the frame I think is done.
Yeah, you're like, what? Love that frame. Well, as we kind of wrap up here, what's some advice you have for other artists who are looking to do this kind of work at this scale, or just working in the graphic novel and writing space?
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, like stay like you got to be determined to finish it. Like I know it's easy to start something and kind of give up on it, but if there's a story or a character that you believe in, like stick with it, push through the muck, and I think like you'll feel all the better for it because it's going to pay off. You just really got to push through, and that's the thing. It's like even drawing like all these little things like a blacksmith tent in the background. It's like I don't really want to research the blacksmith tent and have to draw that in the background. But the thing is, like, that's just going to add to the story.
Yeah.
That people may not recognize it, but they're gonna admire it as a whole, as how it looks. And so yeah, just stay motivated as much as you can, but also step away when you can. I can't tell you how many times I've worked on a page and then stepped away for a day and come back and be like, oh, that's completely wrong. So yeah.
Well, Michael, thanks for chatting. I would talk with this stuff about you all day, but we probably have something else that we got to go draw or animate or something. I don't know. But so thank you if you made it this far. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for your interest in Amora. The Kickstarter is live right now. If you're into it, we'd love your support, and it would mean the world to us. And I know Michael is super appreciative of that.
Absolutely.
And then also, so follow us on Instagram. That's where we're posting stuff out there all the time. And then also, we have a Discord. It's 90% for our tabletop games, but we do have a channel over there for Amora. So if you want to chat out Michael and distract him from his day job, go over there and ask him anything about Amora. And yeah, we're gonna keep chugging over here, and Michael's gonna be painting Amora for at least the next
14 years.
14 years. That sounds great. Well, thanks again, Michael. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Appreciate your time. And we'll see you all later. Thanks for watching.
Bye.